What happens when desire crosses the line into the forbidden? In a world where love knows no boundaries, one woman finds herself irresistibly drawn to her son's best friend, igniting a passion that could change everything. As secrets unravel and temptation lurks around every corner, will they succumb to their desires, or will guilt tear them apart? Join us on this tantalizing journey of forbidden love, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more thrilling tales. After years of denying myself intimacy, I never imagined I would find myself in this predicament, yearning for a man significantly younger than me, longing for his touch like a woman starved for affection. Yet, after a decade of solitary nights and countless evenings spent with only my own hands and unfulfilled dreams, I was on the verge of breaking. Then he entered my life, Jake, my son's best friend. He was tall and strong, the kind of young man who turned heads. His physique resembled something sculpted from stone, with broad shoulders, toned arms, and abs that teased me every time he lifted his shirt to wipe away sweat. Initially, it was merely innocent admiration, but as the weeks went by, something within me stirred a deep-seated hunger. The first temptation struck on a summer afternoon when my son went away for the weekend, leaving Jake alone in our home. I had just finished showering and was wrapped in nothing but a silk robe when I heard a knock at my bedroom door. "Mrs. Carter, your AC isn't working. Mind if I borrow a fan?" My heart raced as I hesitated before responding. "Come in," I called out, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. Jake stepped into the room, his shirt clinging to his damp chest, while his dark eyes locked onto mine. In that instant, I felt the electric tension that spoke of unfulfilled desires. His gaze flickered to the open slit of my robe, where the curve of my thigh was barely hidden. I should have tightened it. I should have sent him away. Instead, I leaned against the dresser, allowing the silk to slip slightly down my shoulder. "It's so hot today," I murmured, watching as he swallowed hard. "Yeah, really hot," he replied breathlessly. The air between us felt thick and charged with danger. His hands were clenched at his sides as he fought against me, and I found myself reveling in it. The moment everything shifted came when he stepped closer, just enough for me to catch the scent of his sweat and cologne mingled with desire. "Jake," I whispered softly, while trailing my fingers lightly over his arm and feeling the warmth of his skin. "You don't have to leave just yet." His breath hitched as his jaw tightened. "Mrs. Carter," he rasped with strain in his voice. "We shouldn't." But his body told a different tale. As I reached up with my lips mere inches from his, I realized this was a moment that could never be undone. Things were about to escalate further. The point of no return had arrived. Jake's breathing grew heavy. His chest rose and fell as if he were battling an internal war. "Mrs. Carter," he said again, fingers twitching as if he wanted to touch me but was holding back. That hesitation thrilled me. I moved even closer. My silk robe slipped further down my shoulder, revealing more skin. "Say my name," I whispered, with my lips dangerously close to his. His jaw clenched tightly. His eyes were dark and filled with longing when he finally breathed out my name. "Lisa." That was it. The moment had come. I reached up and slid my fingers along the firm contours of his stomach, feeling the tension beneath my touch. His body felt like fire beneath my fingertips as he inhaled sharply and tensed under my caress. Words caught in his throat as I traced a slow, teasing line down his chest. "Jake," I murmured, while tilting my head slightly to gauge his reaction. "Do you want this?" His hands balled into fists at his sides. He stood rigidly, as if restraining himself from acting on impulse. But then something shifted within him. With a low growl, he shattered that resistance and pulled me against him with fierce strength. The heat radiating from him enveloped me completely. My heart raced wildly as our lips hovered mere inches apart, his breath warm against my skin, while he held himself back with great effort. "I've wanted you for so long," he confessed thickly with need in his voice. I gasped when he finally made contact, really made contact with me. His finger glided up my thigh, pushing aside the silk fabric with a firm, possessive grip. "Jake," came out as a breathless plea before our lips collided in a kiss that was hungry and reckless. I tangled my fingers in his thick, dark hair, pulling him closer while pressing myself into him. His hands roamed over me, claiming every inch, like someone who had been deprived of this moment for far too long. A moan escaped me as I arched into him, craving more. Though we both knew we shouldn't be doing this, neither of us stopped because for the first time in 10 long, lonely years, I felt truly alive. The next morning or so, I thought I awoke breathless with tingling skin from where he had touched me. The taste of him lingered on my lips, while my body yearned for more intimacy. As I stretched out seeking warmth from the man who had ignited something within me, reality struck. I realized the bed was empty. Jake was gone. For a brief moment, I lay there, replaying every sinful second from the night before. How his hands had roamed over me, how passionately our lips had met, how he had worshipped every part of me, like someone who had been waiting forever for this chance. But now, under the morning light, reality set in. What had we done? Just then, as I prepared to get out of bed, a noise caught my attention. Footsteps followed by the creaking sound of the bedroom door opening revealed Jake standing there shirtless, with sweat glistening on his toned chest, while locking eyes with mine. "I went for a run," he said, in a low, husky voice that hinted at needing clarity after what transpired between us last night. "Did it help?" I spoke in a tone softer than I meant to, and he inhaled sharply as he stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. I barely had a moment to respond before he was upon me again, his hands clutching my waist, his lips crashing against mine. Losing control, I moved as he pressed me against the wall, his body melding with mine, the heat between us flaring up once more. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed, his breath warm against my skin. "Tell me you don't regret it." The only thing I regretted was not doing this sooner. My fingers traced the firm contours of his chest, while my lips teased along his jaw. I didn't regret a single moment. His grip tightened as he lost some of his control. "Good, because I'm not finished with you yet." And just like that, we surrendered again, this time without any reservations. His kiss was like fire. His hands were rough, yet gentle as they dug into my hips, while he pushed me against the wall with a desperation that matched my own. I could feel every hard inch of him, the evidence of his desire burning through his jeans. "Tell me to stop," he rasped against my lips, his voice raw, but I didn't comply. Instead, I wove my fingers into his hair and drew him closer, our tongues sliding together in a slow and sinful rhythm. His groan resonated within me, sending shivers down my spine. My name on his lips was both a prayer and a curse as I guided him to my bedroom, my heart racing in my ears. The moment the door closed behind us, his hands were everywhere, peeling off my clothes and tracing the curves I had been too embarrassed to let anyone else admire. But Jake worshipped me. "You're so beautiful," he breathed, as his mouth traveled down my neck and collarbone before going lower. I gasped when he took me into his mouth. My back arched off the bed as his tongue relentlessly teased me in ways that my ex-husband never had. "Jake," I choked out while gripping the sheets tightly. He didn't relent until I was trembling and begging for more, my thighs shaking around his shoulders. Then, with a wicked grin, he finally gave me what I craved, filling me so completely and perfectly that I sobbed out his name into the darkness. We moved together in a frantic and feverish rhythm. The bed creaked beneath us, with every thrust a confession of our sins. And when I shattered beneath him, and he followed me over the edge with a groan, I realized there was no turning back. What do you think will happen next? Will their secret be uncovered? Can they resist each other? Or will guilt drive them apart? Share your thoughts in the comments. And remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tantalizing tales. Forbidden Love has never been this intense. A year later, a letter arrived on a Tuesday. "Dear Mrs. Carter, we regret to inform you that your son Daniel has formally withdrawn consent for any contact." I didn't need to read further. The embossed university letter spoke volumes. My fingers shook as I placed it on the kitchen counter, the same counter where Jake had first kissed me, and where we crossed an irreversible line. A warm hand rested on my shoulder. Jake's voice was deeper now, more assured. The boy I'd fallen for had matured into a man during these stolen months. "Are you okay?" He pulled me into an embrace as I inhaled his familiar scent of woodsy notes mixed with that cheap cologne he refused to give up. "He changed schools across the country because of us." The truth hung between us like an uninvited guest in the room as Jake's arms tightened around me. Flashback. 3 months after that first night. "You disgust me." Daniel's voice cracked like he was 15 again instead of 19. The duffel bag at his feet was already packed. My best friend. I'd reached for him. "It wasn't planned. Was it worth it?" His eyes, my ex-husband's eyes, burned with betrayal. Present day. Jake pressed his forehead against mine. We could reach out, try again. I studied the man who had both destroyed and rebuilt me. The laugh lines around his eyes from our secret weekends at the lake. The scar on his collarbone from when we got reckless in the kitchen. How he still looked at me like I hung the moon, even when I felt like the villain in this narrative. "No," I whispered, while tracing along his jawline. "Some fires burn too hot to extinguish." The doorbell rang. Jake frowned at me questioningly. "Are you expecting someone?" I wasn't. But when I opened the door, there stood my past, a wrinkled suit, holding a bouquet of wilting daisies, the same kind he'd brought on our first date 22 years ago. "Hi, Lisa." My ex-husband's smile was tentative. Behind him sat a moving van, idling at the curb. Jake loomed behind me like an unspoken storm. There was no need to turn around to sense his tension or see how tightly he'd clenched his fists. One man represented the life I'd lost, while another symbolized what I'd chosen. And as autumn leaves swirled around us on that quiet suburban street, it dawned on me that this wasn't an ending, but rather a reckoning. Who should Lisa choose? Jake, passion and scandal, a love that burns bright but might consume her, or her ex stability and forgiveness, a chance to rebuild her family? Or should she walk away from both? 6 months after everything fell apart, the courtroom air reeked of stale coffee and regret. As I adjusted my blouse collar, it felt too tight, just like everything else in my life these days. As my lawyer slid a document across the table, full custody to Daniel's father, with only supervised visitation allowed. Across from me sat my ex-husband, who wouldn't meet my gaze. Beside him sat our son, who stared blankly at the wall as if I were already a ghost, and Jake wasn't here. Flashback, the night it all unraveled. You knew this would happen. I'd screamed at him while hurling Daniel's high school graduation photo. It shattered against the wall near Jake's head. You selfish, reckless, I love you. His roar shook every window in its path. Was that supposed to be some kind of secret? Present day. The judge's gavel struck down like gunfire, case dismissed. I walked out of that courthouse into a rainstorm. October winds whipped through my hair like punishment, when suddenly there he was leaning against his truck in that damn leather jacket, looking older than 22 years old. Lisa. Rain dripped down along his stubbled jaw. I wanted to lick it off. I wanted to slap him. You shouldn't be here, came out dead from my lips as Jake pushed off from the truck with boots splashing through puddles. I was accepted into firefighter training in Colorado. A laugh escaped me, hysterical and fragmented. So this is farewell. Come with me, he said, his hands framing my face, rough thumbs smudging rain and mascara. This town represents the past. It's just us beginning anew. I shut my eyes and envisioned Daniel at 8, sticky with popsicle juice. I remembered Jake's smile the first time we were intimate, the empty wine bottles, and the lonely beds that awaited me in the future. When I opened my eyes, I made my decision. A year later, at Rocky Mountain sunrise, the firehouse alarm blared at 3 a.m. I turned over in our borrowed bed, observing Jake as he donned his gear with practiced ease. He paused at the door, as he always does, and pressed a kiss to the curve of my pregnant belly. "Love you both," he murmured, as whispers floated out the window. The first snowflakes of winter began to descend somewhere back east. A son might never forgive his mother. In this untamed new life, a phone may never ring with the apology I long for. But here there is fire. Here there is tranquility. There is also a definitive end a shattered heart was. My name is Chelsea. I'm 21 years old, and there's something I've never shared with anyone. I'm not addicted to substances like drugs or alcohol, but to something else entirely, something I can't go a single night without: my vibrator. When I turned 18, feeling curious, lonely, and quietly yearning for something I didn't fully comprehend at the time, I ordered my first toy online. It was a sleek, little pink device that fit perfectly in my hand and made me experience sensations I had never encountered before. Initially, I used it once a week. Then it escalated to every night. Now it's as essential to my bedtime routine as brushing my teeth or drinking water. My body won't relax until I've used it and felt its effects. Sometimes I convince myself it's merely a habit, but deep down, I recognize it's more than that. I've created a hidden world around this ritual. Soft music playing, dim lighting, no interruptions, just me, and that delightful vibration between my thighs. I know precisely how to touch myself, where to apply pressure, how to arch my back into the pillow as I grind and whisper things no one will ever hear. When it's over, I lie there in silence, satisfied yet guilty and alone. I've never confided in anyone. It was my secret until he moved in. His name is Jake, my mother's new husband. She met him through a dating app, and within weeks, he was in our home, sitting on our couch and drinking from our mugs as if he belonged there. At first, the idea infuriated me. I had no desire to welcome a stranger into our lives, especially not into my personal space. But then I realized Jake wasn't what I had anticipated. He exuded danger, not in a frightening way, but in a manner that made your thighs clench unexpectedly. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a deep voice. His jawline looked sharp enough to cut glass, and his salt and pepper hair gave him the appearance of a handsome actor from one of those taboo romance films. His arms were tattooed and strong, revealing just enough to make my imagination wander. I began observing him from the hallway while he worked out in the garage, shirtless with sweat glistening on his flexing muscles. I knew it was wrong, but couldn't resist the urge. Thoughts of him invaded my nightly routine, his arms pinning me down, his rough hands gripping my waist, his voice murmuring dirty things in my ear. My little pink vibrator started to feel like him, bigger, harder, more intense. That night, the night everything shifted, I was deeply engrossed in pleasure, with my legs spread wide and the toy buzzing between them. My eyes were closed and back arched when I whispered his name before even realizing it. Jake. When I opened my eyes, he stood there in the doorway watching me, and shockingly enough, I didn't stop. The atmosphere felt thick with an unexpected tension. Desire hung heavy in the air. Jake stood there, gripping the door frame as if trying to restrain himself. His gaze remained fixed on me without faltering for even a moment, and neither did mine. Perhaps I should have turned away or pretended this was all an error, but instead I couldn't bring myself to do so. My body betrayed me as I continued moving the vibrator against myself, the hum sending waves of pleasure through me. My pulse raced in my throat while my chest rose and fell rapidly, but it was his eyes, those deep gray eyes that stole the breath from my lungs. They were hungry, not merely curious or shocked, but truly hungry. I had expected embarrassment or shame, but instead felt something else entirely. A dangerous thrill coursing through me as my core tightened with an ache between my legs, stronger than ever before. Jake stepped closer. His broad figure blocked out the light from the hallway without uttering a word, but I could see his chest rising and falling just as quickly as mine was. He was battling with himself. My voice trembled when I finally spoke. "You shouldn't be here." He didn't respond immediately, instead, choosing to observe me intently as his gaze lingered on how my fingers moved along the toy. That's when realization hit me. I hadn't stopped. I'd continued pressing the toy deeper against myself, as if inviting him closer. Suddenly overwhelmed by what was happening, I questioned what on earth I was doing. This was my stepdad. This couldn't be right. Yet despite that inner turmoil, my body craved the tension, the forbidden thrill of having him so near, even if only through his gaze. It felt like a taut string ready to snap when suddenly Jake spoke. "Tell me to leave, Chelsea," he said softly. "Tell me to leave, and I'll go." My breath caught in my throat. I understood what he meant. He offered me an escape, a chance for control, but somehow that wasn't what I wanted. I found myself breathing heavily now, while still tracing the toy along my skin, but now all thoughts were on him, on Jake. Slowly lifting my head to meet his gaze revealed something profound, the same desire reflected back at me, the same dark need that stirred within me. "I don't want you to leave," I whispered barely above a murmur. His expression changed, lips parted as if wanting to speak, but no words emerged instead. He took one slow step after another until he stood beside my bed. The scent of him, a musky, woodsy aroma, enveloped me completely. For a moment I thought he might reach out, touch me, or take me into his arms, finishing what I'd begun, but instead he halted just inches away from me. We were close enough for me to feel his warmth radiating off him, the heat surrounding us, almost tangibly, like a physical caress, but writhed, shifting my hips against the fabric, the ache within me nearly overwhelming. "Chelsea," his voice was gentle, barely above a murmur. "Are you certain you want this?" I wasn't sure if I truly was, but all that filled my mind was how intensely I wanted to respond affirmatively. "Yes," I exhaled, my hands still roaming, my body pleading for more. "I'm sure." With that, he did something I hadn't anticipated. He reached for the bottom of his shirt and slowly, purposefully, lifted it over his head. His abs flexed with each motion as he tossed the shirt aside. My gaze followed the inked designs on his skin, the tattoos only enhancing his allure and danger. Yet it wasn't solely the tattoos or his physique. It was the strength and control in his actions, how he dominated the space effortlessly. I felt utterly captivated, unable to resist imagining what it would be like to have him pressed against me, his body enveloping mine in ways I had never even envisioned. Then he looked at me, his gray eyes darkened with longing, and asked once more, "Are you sure?" This time there was no pause in my response. "Yes, Jake, I'm sure." That moment marked a turning point. I recognized the boundary I was about to cross and understood the implications. But in that instant, with the heat between us almost unbearable, all that occupied my thoughts was how much I desired him, how desperately I needed him. There are moments in life that cannot be undone, moments that alter everything with just a single touch. This was mine. Jake stood there without a shirt, his chest rising and falling as if he were battling something within himself. Yet those deep gray eyes revealed he had already succumbed to that struggle, and so had I. He leaned closer, and I held my breath. My heart raced so fiercely, I thought he might hear it. Then his hand moved slowly and tentatively to brush a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered just a moment too long, sending a shiver down my spine as my skin yearned for more. I wanted him to take me to claim me, but he moved deliberately as if wanting me to savor every second of this moment, as if he intended to tease me with what I'd been longing for in my mind for weeks. Jake, I whispered softly, barely audible. Touch me. He didn't respond verbally. Instead, he settled on the edge of the bed, keeping his gaze locked on mine while his hand glided gently down my thigh, tracing my skin as if learning every part of me. I bit my lip and arched into his touch, desperate for more. When his fingers finally reached the waistband of my panties, he hesitated. If you want me to stop now is your chance, he said. But stopping was the last thing on my mind. Don't stop, I urged. Please. Just like that, he pulled down the fabric. His eyes were fixed on my body as I felt exposed under his gaze, not just physically, but completely vulnerable, as if he could see every thought and hidden desire I'd kept buried deep inside. His fingers glided over my sensitive skin, and I gasped as tremors coursed through me beneath his touch. He leaned closer, brushing his lips against my ear, and whispered softly, You've been dreaming about this, haven't you? Yes, I breathed out each night. I could feel our connection intensifying, the tension becoming unbearable as he took his time exploring me, like he wanted to memorize every reaction, every gasp, every moan, every shiver. Then it happened. He stood up slowly and undid his belt before letting his pants drop. My eyes widened in surprise. My heart skipped a beat at what lay before me, larger than I'd anticipated, thick and intimidating. For a brief moment, I froze. I'd envisioned this moment countless times in fantasy, but now that it was real, I questioned whether I could handle him. He noticed the uncertainty in my expression and leaned down to kiss my neck softly, while reassuringly saying in a low voice, I'll be gentle, but I want you to feel me. And indeed, I did. He positioned himself between my legs, guiding himself with one hand while cupping my face with the other. Our eyes locked as he pushed forward slowly and cautiously. A gasp escaped me. The stretch was intense, almost overwhelming as tension gripped my body. Relax, baby, he murmured gently, while brushing his thumb over my lips. Let me in. I tried. I closed my eyes, focusing on his voice, his touch, as inch by inch, he filled me deeper than anything I'd ever experienced before. A moan escaped from deep within, a sound beyond control. The pain mingled with pleasure, twisting together, sharp yet sweetly intoxicating. When he finally settled fully inside me, we both paused, breathing heavily together. You feel incredible, he groaned as I clung tightly to him, my nails digging into his back, while he began moving with slow, deep strokes, each motion sending shockwaves through me. I felt full stretched, possessed. It felt wrong, all of it, forbidden, but it felt so right as his lips met mine, filled with longing and urgency. His hands grasped my hips, drawing me nearer with each movement, the headboard striking the wall in a steady beat that made the space feel tighter and hotter. "Jake, I can't," I gasped. "I'm about to lose control," he murmured. "I want to feel you climax." And I did. My body tightened before erupting in warmth and ecstasy that left me breathless. I cried out, clinging to him as if I were falling. He followed moments later, his grip firm, a low growl escaping against my neck. When it was over, we collapsed into one another, our breaths uneven, our bodies entwined, our thoughts swirling. We remained silent for a long while because we both understood there was no turning back. It began with my vibrator. Now I can't spend a night without him, Jake. My stepdad, even thinking his name in my mind, sent shivers down my spine. What we did should have filled me with shame, but instead it ignited a hunger within me, an addiction. Every time he walked past, or I heard his deep voice from another room, I craved him. I needed him like air. After that night, everything shifted. Our touches were no longer accidental. Our glances lingered longer. We discovered ways to be alone and sneak around my mom like two guilty lovers caught in a perilous game. But it didn't feel like a game. It felt like survival. Jake began visiting my room late at night, quietly and cautiously. Sometimes he would simply lie beside me, his large hands sliding up my thighs while I pretended to be asleep, only to melt into his touch when his fingers found my sweet spot. On other nights, he would awaken me by whispering naughty things into my ear, his body already hard against mine. He loved to tease me. "Tell me what you need, baby girl," he'd say, as I'd whimper in desperation for him. "Please, Jake, I need you." Each night spent with him became another layer of obsession, a memory etched into my skin. He stretched me in ways no man ever had before, filling me so deeply that I could still feel him the next morning. But it wasn't solely about sex. There were nights when he would prepare a hot bath for me, washing every part of my body with his strong hands before taking me against the steamy bathroom mirror, or mornings when we'd sneak into the garage with me perched on top of the dryer as he lifted my dress and entered me without warning. It was dirty. It was wrong, but it felt so perfect. I stopped using my vibrator, not because I didn't crave release, but because nothing compared to him. I was hooked on his size, his scent, and the way his voice growled in my ear as he pinned me down and claimed me. One afternoon, I returned home early to find him in the living room, with sweat glistening on his chest as he worked on something shirtless. My eyes feasted on him. He looked up and smirked. "Miss me already?" I approached him, dropping my purse with my heart racing. "You have no idea." He pulled me onto his lap and crashed his mouth onto mine. I could already sense him hardening beneath me as I ground against him, needy and wet, and whispered, "Take me right here." That day on the living room couch saw me moaning into his shoulder as he filled me again and again, while gripping my waist like I was the only woman he'd ever desire. We didn't hear the garage door open until it was almost too late. My heart nearly stopped at the thought of my mom. Jake quickly pulled away from me and threw a blanket over us. While I scrambled to adjust my dress, we were breathless and flushed just seconds away from being discovered. That day made us realize how reckless we had become, but neither of us chose to stop. The danger only intensified our desire. Even now, I'm uncertain how long this can continue, how long we can keep sneaking around and stealing moments amidst lies. But one thing is clear. I'm no longer addicted to my vibrator. I'm addicted to Jake, his scent, his skin, his thick hardness that shatters me every time, and deep down inside, I know he's just as hooked on me too.